grab a seat, gather around, get your coffee. I'm excited by the coffee I'm enjoying this morning because I live out of just kind of three small bags. My largest bag is your it's actually a kind of small carry-on. I noticed this, even though I bought what is supposed to be a standard carry-on size, I notice when I go on the plane that other people's carry-ons are larger than mine, which is okay. But this is to bring up the point that I don't have a lot of stuff, and I really like not having a lot of stuff. It's quite phenomenal, and I think it's of course it's something people rarely get to experience, like having very little stuff, because it's just so normal that we have a place to live and there's lots of stuff and it kind of collects in it. But I got an item the other day. I used it for the first time this morning to make my coffee. And it's a reusable coffee filter. It's a steel funnel, so it's to do pour overs. It's phenomenal. And so I will carry that with me. But when I say carry that, the reason I got an item like that is that it's so lightweight and it's easy to pack around, right? I can like stuff things in it. It will take up essentially no space, but it's going to be so useful when I go to different places, because I find often they don't have the equipment that would be best for making the most delicious coffee. So now I have a good filter to make delicious coffee. Welcome everybody. Minchi, it's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Minchi, and of course, Mr. Mastodon Farm. Dylan, thank you so much for being here, being members on the YouTube members channel as well. Thank you. It's great to see you all. We got Anne, Roanna. Hello. Thanks for stopping by. Anybody who's joining who is new to Brain Tech Support Live, we explore the practice of being ourselves while bringing along any kind of thoughts and feelings and other stuff that comes up in the head, because there's nothing wrong with that stuff. It can be there. This past week on the members channel, we were talking about importance and the relevance of how we attach importance to things. So particularly thoughts and feelings and stuff like that, and how that is relevant to mental health. Because if we're struggling with intrusive thoughts, for instance, what happens a lot is that a thought will pop up and we're immediately giving that importance over other things happening around us. We're giving that importance over the things we actually value. And so because we really elevate, say, an intrusive thought, and it could be an intrusive negative thought, it could be an intrusive positive thought. This thought pops up and we go, oh, I've got to give that my attention. We're making that important. And when we start to cut out the compulsions, a lot of what we're going to be doing as we cut out compulsions, mental or physical, is noticing experiences and choosing to give importance to things that we actually value instead of whatever pops up in the head. So maybe, yeah, we'll come back to that as a kind of theme or topic on today's live stream. Phoenix, I'm glad the videos have really helped in difficult times. I appreciate everybody. I had made a post on Instagram maybe earlier last week, and I really appreciated all the kind messages people sent about how the videos and content and coaching and all sorts of things like that had been useful over the years. It was unexpected, and I really appreciated it. So thank you, everybody. The coffee filter really makes, when you have like a nice coffee filter, the coffee tastes so delicious. They are like really delicious coffee beans as well, from here in Mexico. That makes a huge difference. When we talk about something like importance, it can seem like not a, what would you say, like a kind of like intense enough or extreme enough mental health exercise to even just say, yeah, we're going to give importance, or we're going to be aware of how we give importance to different experiences. But it really gets at something fundamental when we're exploring our interactions with the brain. It's one of the reasons I'd say meditation and mindfulness is really helpful too, not because there's some kind of special ritual. Of course, learning how to levitate, really useful, all of that kind of stuff. Is that when you sit down to meditate, what we're doing there is we are choosing to give importance. In that case, I would say ideally we're choosing to give importance to sitting, just being there. And there are going to be experiences around us. And rather than chase them, we're just going to give importance to sitting. And the reason that's useful is because then when we're running into difficult experiences in life, difficult experiences in our heads, we're going to extend that same practice into those moments. There's going to be something that pops up. We get to make a choice about how we give importance to things. We've often been struggling because we've gotten into this, kind of, I would say, like habit, consistent practice of just automatically on reflex, giving our attention to anything that feels threatening, anything that feels wrong, right? Anything that feels contaminated. And we've maybe set a goal of, I don't want to have these feelings, right? I don't want to feel anxious. I don't want to feel depressed. I don't want to feel wrong. I don't want to feel unreal, undeserving, and so on. And so when we elevate that importance as a goal, it's so natural that we automatically react on reflex. It pops up and we're like, this is dangerous. I've got to get rid of it. It feels bad. And then we elevated importance over everything else that's going on. And that takes us further and further away from the actions that we value. So we start to give more time and energy to the fear, less time and energy to what we value. That leads to the brain throwing up the fear more and more because it's going to throw up whatever we spend time and energy on. And soon we're spending every minute of the day focused on this stuff that we don't like. The brain's throwing it up just so we spend more time on it. And we get further and further and further away from what we actually value. So when we start to talk about giving importance to the things we value, we're really doing something that's very practical. And we're doing something that can also feel very dangerous. So if we're talking about kind of like a classic ERP exercise, giving importance to nature around us, giving importance to something we're enjoying, like some coffee or something like that, instead of giving importance to the thoughts the brain is throwing up, that's going to feel dangerous. It's going to feel wrong. And that's where it becomes that classic, say, ERP exercise. That's where it becomes a real acceptance and commitment therapy exercise where we're saying, here's what I'm going to value over that other stuff. I'm going to give my attention to where I want to go. So if you're feeling like, just choosing to give importance to something else isn't an intense enough exercise, practice it and you'll see the brain is going to see that as quite dangerous and risky. So let's do the dangerous, risky things of giving time and energy to what we value in life. Minchi. Oh, thanks for I'm glad the new post in the membership channel uh was useful. Indeed, as you said, the compulsions can be super specific. Tona, are you in Ciudad de Mexico as well? Good to see you this morning. Luna said, "How can I practice enoughness to stop acting from this feeling of guilt and I should be more productive, etc." It comes up a lot. You could say, even if we look at kind of classic compulsions like a hand washing compulsion or something like that, there's an inherent not enoughness, right? Like I haven't cleaned enough, I have to do more. And so that pattern of not seeing it as enough, it really helped me to recognize that my brain just wouldn't see it as enough in anything. It could even be something good. If I was, if I used to have snack food in my home, I would eat it all. Sometimes right away, I would get it at the grocery store, being like, I'm going to save this for the week, and then eat it all that day. Because if I started eating, I would just be like, oh, it's kind of like not enough, or just a little bit more would be good. So if we say that our brains are not good at seeing enough, in fact, let's go beyond not good, incapable of seeing enough, then we have to start to teach it. So something that really helped me there was approaching enoughness as a practice, that I would be actively teaching my brain to celebrate enough. And I think the celebrating was key. So it was doing something that in the past I would have thought like, oh, that's enough, or it's not good enough, and now celebrating it. And so, especially if something, or like you mentioned, more productive then, it really helps me, especially in the work I do, right? Because I work on my own. I could also, and this came up early on in the beginning, I feel like, oh, like I haven't done enough of like sharing about mental health stuff, or if we're trying to make recovery accessible, well, it's not accessible to everybody yet. I've got to keep doing, or I should just post another thing or something like that. So to really concretely identify today, what are the objective actions that are me giving what I want to give when it comes to, say, for instance, creating mental health and recovery content online. So not leaving it vague, but actually deciding what is enough today, and then celebrating that. So actually then doing it, feeling the urge to just go check something again or just do more, stopping and say, no, like I did enough and it's great. Like I'm going to celebrate what I did. So with whatever you're exploring in life, tomorrow, this coming week, what would it be like to set some really clear actions that are enough and then to celebrate them? And it's okay if it doesn't feel like enough. It is going to be like having this little kid beside you who always wants to watch like more Baby Shark. So like a little kid, and they just want to watch Baby Shark again and again and again. And they're going to cry if you don't let them watch more Baby Shark. But you have to teach them for your own sanity that we've listened to Baby Shark enough times today. And we're going to celebrate that. So how many times is enough to listen to Baby Shark? And then we celebrate it. And so enjoy exploring that. Race said, I can't figure out where I want to go. Like what field? Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty about where we want to go. It's a big open, like it's an open world video game. And you get to explore. It makes sense we won't know. So even taking some of that pressure off to feel like, oh, we should know. Because also, especially if you're thinking careers and any other thing you could want to go explore, this is a fundamentally different world than, for instance, the one your parents went into. where, yeah, you kind of could be in school. And so back in the day, people would go to school, elementary school, and teachers would tell them about jobs that would still exist when they were done elementary school and high school and university. That does not exist now. If somebody's in elementary school now and their teacher asks them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Whatever job they bring up, there's a very high probability that job will not exist by the time they're just done elementary school. So we're in a fundamentally different kind of professional landscape. So considering that, maybe some of the ideas we have about like, oh, I've got to know where I'm going to go no longer make sense. And so we're operating under these pressures and beliefs about, professions and jobs that existed for a time that we do not live in anymore. So we explore with curiosity. Nomad said, I'm slowly making the change from getting to giving. I just wanted to say thanks for this wonderful practice. Oh, you're welcome. It's something I'm trying to apply to my everyday actions. Giving is much more useful. Yeah, huge. Enjoy exploring that. That is an understanding that we can get so much mileage out of. It helps me so much. Today, it helped me so much with cutting out compulsions and recovery. When we see, for everybody wondering what we're talking about here, I find that there's this fundamental shift in how we approach, let's say, life and experiences when we start taking care of our mental health versus when we're doing things that create all sorts of problems for us. If we're doing things that create all sorts of problems for us, it's very likely when we look at what's going on there that we're trying to get something. Get rid of a feeling, get rid of a thought, get a feeling, get some kind of goal we don't control, get certainty. We're trying to get stuff, and that ends up creating all sorts of problems for us. Especially when we think of enoughness, because we're trying to get more and more, and the brain won't let us feel like we're getting enough. It won't feel like us that we're getting a deservingness, enoughness, etc. And so we have to keep chasing it, and we just feel worse and worse. When we're taking care of our mental health and ourselves and our families, our communities, we're going to be switching to giving. And giving can include giving to ourselves. It's not like, oh, I have to like give and give and give to everybody else until there's nothing left. No, like you're going to be giving to yourself too. But even when we switch our approach to ourselves, not as one that involves needing to get control of ourselves, but that we're going to celebrate ourselves and give to ourselves. It's so transformative and different from the approach we took when we were struggling. Yeah, this week, I'd say to everybody, it can be interesting when you notice the brain trying to push you around, when you notice yourself chasing compulsions that you wanted to cut out. What are you trying to get? What's the goal there? What would it be like if you were giving instead of getting? Rais, I see you mentioned grind. So this was you were asking about not being sure about where to go in life, and you said I'm in between two beliefs. Do grind work all day for something, be obsessed. But one part also says it's wrong, it's not the way to grind all day. It's like being a slave, but then I fear failure also. Being productive was my whole identity before I had OCD. Oh, we're going to come back to this in a second. Now, after suffering with OCD, I've lost my productivity, lost my ambitions. I can't be obsessed about a goal anymore, and that makes me scared. So I would offer that what you were describing before was OCD. That like version of productivity naturally leads to being burnt out. That's one of the reasons that I find it useful to make that switch from getting to giving. Because when we're like, I've gotta get this productivity, this intense goal, I've gotta even get obsessed. We end up just very reactive, like looking for this like prize to chase and hoping the prize is going to motivate us. But then that we always need this other thing. We always need to get stressed. We always need to get worn out to chase this external motivation. And inevitably, that leads to not having it. One of the reasons I'll often talk about the switch from getting to giving is because the old engine, fueled by trying to get stuff, fueled by like fear and anxiety, trying to get rid of feelings we don't like, we will have experienced that as a productive engine. It is very much like a combustion engine, but it's going to pollute up your environment and you're going to run out of fuel. So it's not a renewable source of fuel, and it's going to pollute everything around you and make it unlivable. But we'll often feel like that was appealing, especially at first when we start to make the change to giving, when we start to make the change to an engine fueled by values. That new engine won't go as fast because we're building it. I mean, we don't know what's part of it. Watch out for that. The way things were before got us to where we are. So if we don't like where things are, we don't want to go back to the way things were. So if we realize that our old way of living led us to this kind of Mad Max world where everything is destroyed, but maybe we're like, but that car was really good. No, that way things were before got us to where they are now. So if you're like, I was so productive and obsessed before, but now I struggle with OCD, I would stick those together. That way of interacting with goals and motivation and fear, that reactive approach, you see the result of it. It leads to bad mental health. What's the new engine going to be? How can you build an engine now not around that getting and controlling and avoiding, but around things you actually want to grow and build? But yeah, you'll be the one that sets those values. And at first that can be challenging and it feels kind of exhausting. Rick, thank you so much for the donation, Rick. I really appreciate it. And the cute little, I think it's a puppy. I think it's like a Shiba Inu, right? Thank you, Rick. I appreciate you being here today. Abed said sometimes we are doing things that create all sorts of problems for us because we live or work in systems or situations or cultures that create all sorts of problems for us. Yeah, we need to see that first. Yeah, and so even talking about this old engine that can be really polluting. Yeah, often we've been told to get in that car and drive it. Often that's how school was structured, exams, that's how, maybe the, first job, second, third, and fourth job were all structured. Yeah, other people will often benefit from creating fear or creating goals that get other people to do really unhealthy things. And so, yeah, it's really important that we also look at the systems around us. We may be interacting with a system that kind of demands a lot of compulsions. And so it's important to understand the negative mental health effects of that. If we have to do that to survive, yeah, it's so natural. We're also going to be really burnt out. We're going to be really anxious. And not to be surprised by that, and not to see that as some kind of personal disorder or fault or issue. Just like if we were required to do some strenuous physical work that wasn't particularly safe or required us to do a repetitive task that was wearing down our bodies, we wouldn't be surprised that our bodies experience pain. And so likewise, if we're in a situation that requires a lot of emotional and mental labor in an unhealthy way, then yeah, we're going to notice the natural consequences of that. Not to take that on as like, oh, I have some kind of disorder because my nervous system is having a natural reaction to what I'm doing. It's operating exactly how it should be operating, right? It's indicating that there is a problem there so that we can address it and fix it. But fixing and changing systems can often be really challenging. That's why, because you can't generally change the system on your own. We collaborate and build community so that we can make changes together. Sinkorosi said, how to tackle compulsions about sleep. If I don't have enough sleep, it will affect my next day in a very bad way. And I become very sensitive about sounds and protective about sleep. So you see there the classic compulsion pattern. There could be this bad thing in the future. So I need to control this thing that I don't control in order to protect the future. We were talking about this on the mental fitness Discord server. I think sleep has come up a lot, but I was sharing some things just the other day on the importance of using values in situations, yeah, where we may be really tired. And so, I mean, I used to have compulsions around sounds as well. I had to recognize those were compulsions. Absolutely. If we, for a variety of reasons, have little sleep, are handling a lot of uncertainties, there are some other maybe issues in our lives that touch on big fears, we are then going to be sensitive around other compulsions. We're going to, automatically default to those compulsions because we're chasing control in a situation where there's a lot of uncertainty, including in our bodies. So we explore how to use values so that we're not having to rely on feeling right in order to do the actions that we value. Because the reality is, in life, we're often going to feel very wrong. We're often not going to get lots of sleep. So how do we set values and approach any kind of experience with a focus, or like we were talking about at the beginning, giving importance to what matters to us versus trying to control a bunch of things that we don't control. So I'd watch out for, because your first question was there to how to tackle compulsions about sleep. But to me, this sounds more like compulsions around feeling right, which is then extending the compulsions to control sleep because you want to feel right. What if you could do the actions you value while feeling wrong with no sleep? Joseph. Oh, Joseph, thank you so much for the kind words. I'm glad you find the live streams useful. Thanks for being here. Luna said, I wonder if you have any advice for planning actions for the week when living with very unpredictable health and energy levels that vary daily. Yeah, so values are always about looking at the context in which we find ourselves. So I often will describe values kind of like a question I'll ask people, or I'll ask myself, what do I want to give given the context in which I find myself right now or today? So yeah, because you're noticing our internal environment and our external environment can change all the time. So something I like to do in the morning, like I was describing earlier with those actions, that's something I'd actually do each morning. When I'm planning out my day, because again, I work for myself, so it's not like I get to show up at the office and someone's like, here, like do this today, or there's a team and we decide what to do. So I am my team, so I have to get together with me and I look at, okay, given the things that are going on today, given the energy I have, given how I am, given what's happening in the world, What do I value giving today? And then I identify some actions. And so when you're doing that, your actions may also include how you're going to take care of yourself for that day, understanding the reality of where your body is at that day. And so it's okay and that may change throughout the day. Like that's part of the skill, seeing that, in the morning, we thought, oh, today I'm going to do this, and that's going to be the thing. But who knows? Something can happen. And then, like I'm thinking the other day, the power went out at one point. And so I was on a coaching call, and the power went out. And so, then I have a backup internet. So I got the backup internet going and things like that. But I had plans for after the coaching call, besides writing up the notes and things like that, there were other things I was going to do. And then the reality of the context was the power had gone out. And so I changed the plan. And so there's that element too of the context can change. And so we can be flexible with that. And that's also where you'll get into that practice of seeing enough to quickly say, hey, this is what is possible in the environment right now. So I'm going to celebrate that as enough rather than getting into this kind of, I don't know, it's not the right word wouldn't be fight, where we like hate on the fact that we can't do a thing that's not even possible because of things we don't control. And so we're not going to get caught up hating on ourselves for not doing something we couldn't even do. Whatever we can do, we're going to celebrate that. I call that, and this is an actual technique I'll often share with people, and I describe it as enjoy doing the thing you're doing. Because we'll so often hate on ourselves for doing whatever, seeing it as not enough. So yeah, whatever you do this week in any kind of context, Luna, enjoy. Dalal said, being beside someone or something I've been avoiding is the scariest thing for me. If I try to fight that fear and sit with it, it feels like I'm allowing that fear to happen. How do I push myself past this feeling? I have a lot of questions there. So I don't really know what you mean by push past this feeling. And why you've necessarily been avoiding them. So I'd have a lot of questions there first. Dana said, oh, you're welcome. Said, any tips for getting through these days and hours when everything feels too intense without resorting back to compulsions? It's really scary with self-harm, OCD. With intense feelings, or any feelings, they could, and not just as a joke, it'll be really important to practice this with non-intense feelings. Because I think sometimes we focus on just these really intense feelings, and we're like, oh, when this comes up, I end up, chasing after a bunch of compulsions, or I chase after the feeling and things like that. But quite often, we also do it around stuff we like. It's why I'll often share with people about changing actions around their cell phones. Because we'll often just be going around doing whatever, we get the urge to check our phones and we just check it. But that is the exact same practice, right? There was a feeling there, and we immediately put the feeling in charge of our actions. If we've been doing that with feelings that don't feel threatening, that don't feel intense, then it's very difficult to make a change when the feeling is intense. I'll often ask people, as a simple mental fitness check or measure, can you sit on the toilet without your phone? Because if you're like, oh, that's kind of, I get bored, or I'm uncomfortable, I need something to fill space. Or even if you're just like, can you sit on the bus or the subway without taking out your phone? And if that feels too uncomfortable, then it makes sense that when you feel threatened and in danger, it's very difficult not to do a compulsion. So rather than looking at just the intense feelings, I look at how we approach all feelings. If we have a practice throughout our life of always putting the feeling in charge of our actions, then when it gets intense, it's very difficult. And even then, also very difficult to work on it because of the logic that we're establishing when we take out our phone in other situations. Because if we're teaching our brain that for the slightest discomfort, we're going to fill the space, we're going to check something, and it may seem useful, like, oh, I had an uncertainty, I just want to check it. But if we do that around the simplest uncertainties, even just an uncertainty of, oh, I remember that actor from somewhere, I'm just going to go look up on IMDb, like, what other shows have they been in? If we chase that uncertainty, how can we not chase an uncertainty when we feel threatened and it feels like intense and we're in panic attack mode? So, and I'd say that for everybody. If you want to work on the big intense feelings, have you worked on the non-intense feelings that are less threatening? And that's actually going to be an amazing place to start. Oh, Dalal, I said thank you so much for it looks like a hippo and a donation. Oh, thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Reese. So this is on the idea of the old engine and how it feels productive. So you said, so the old way of living led me to this burnout. But the old way was also kind of pushing me, made me get good grades and other stuff. Yeah, yeah, usually we'll say that, yeah. But now all those parts of my life have faced a decline. Yeah. It it's often the case. I'll describe it as scaling. Our old way of doing things may have worked in a small, narrow framework where the uncertainties were not too complex. If we want to progress in our careers, in our relationships, the old way of managing certain uncertainties and chasing certainty will not scale to the reality and complexity that we'll need to handle to do more or excel in whatever area we're exploring. But in the past, that old way, that kind of hyper controlling way of managing and going after all of the uncertainties and controlling everything, yeah, it will have felt like it produced results. And just like in so many areas of life, the thing that might have worked in a small, confined set of variables just won't scale to the reality of life. And if we want to progress, and so often what will happen there is people will cut themselves off from continuing to progress or explore other opportunities because the old way of controlling all the uncertainties just won't scale to the level of uncertainties they're going to experience. And so often this is the case if people are progressing in say a business environment where they may have excelled and be seen as like the person who is excelling and doing really well. And so what happens then is people go, oh, this person really gets it. They know their stuff. Let's make them a manager. And suddenly, though, they're no longer able to excel by just like going home and working super long hours and obsessing. Because now excelling means handling uncertainties and helping other people navigate uncertainties. And they can't control all of that. And so if they try to control all of that, they'll not be an effective manager and they'll also burn out and they'll kind of stop there, right? Because the old way of doing things isn't going to scale to the present and complexity of reality. So, something to consider. Yet, we're always going to have seen the old way of doing things as having produced results. That's fine. It's not going to produce results when we scale up to a more complex reality. Ono, Tona, yeah. He said, in my job, I was expected to drink frequently until late with clients, and I ended up ill. I had that people pleasing compulsion, so I didn't see it as something wrong, but something I had to do. Yeah, it's a great example of where an office environment can often be super unhealthy. And yeah, and it'll seem like even again this idea of like, oh, but I'm doing good because we may think, oh, but the clients really liked me. Like I was always willing to go out with them, and I always gave them the best parties. And that, yeah, may have worked at one time, but that is not sustainable. And so finding that way that we can actually create a healthier, more sustainable practice around whatever it is. Yeah, even though at first, because the new engine won't run as well, even though at first it may seem like it's not producing as good a results, long term, doing the actions we value and taking care of our health is so much more, returns better results and is more beneficial for us and actually other people as well. Andrea, you said, I just wanted to say that months ago I was in a very bad place and now I'm living again and thriving. Your work in ICBD helped me 100%. Thanks. Oh, Andrea, thanks for sharing that. It's really great to hear that yeah, you're in a thriving, yeah, you're on a path of thriving and putting together a toolkit that works really well for you. That's fantastic. Chris, yeah, so can you tell us a few words about the courses you have online? What would you say is the correct way for one to go about mindfulness and exercise anxiety and emotional regulation? I wouldn't, so let's start with the idea of a correct way. Right away, I would say there is not a correct way. And even the post Andre had shared just before, so you see that Andre mentioned like putting together some of my content in ICBT. That is so normal. I find that when we talk about mental health and fitness, we're going to approach it in a similar way to physical fitness. And the reality is, just like with physical fitness, you're going to put together a set of practices and approaches that work really well for you and your context and your goals. So there's not a correct way separate from what matters to you. It would be like asking, like, what's the correct way to approach physical fitness? And right, there's not, because somebody may want to really explore cardiovascular endurance. Like maybe they're asking about physical fitness because they were doing something that required endurance, like they had to outrun a velociraptor, and they thought, oh, I was really winded trying to outrun that velociraptor. I want to improve my cardiovascular endurance, right? So they have a really clear goal around what they value in life. But somebody else maybe wrestles hippos. And so a hippo, if you're wrestling a hippo, it's much more like powerlifting, unless you're trying to outrun a hippo. But a hippo is probably hippos are very fast. Yeah. So maybe we're just going to focus on wrestling hippos. So then your goals might have to do with strength and like really, intense bursts of power. So the exercises you do are going to be different than from the person who has to outrun the velociraptor and really wants to focus on endurance. But neither is wrong, right? If somebody's lifting heavy weights, that doesn't mean the person who's running up a mountain is doing the wrong thing. They're doing the exercises that are relevant to the skills they want to build. Mental health and fitness works the same because we're not trying to clean away something. We're trying to go towards what we want to build. So relevant to the courses that are online, this is something I approach first in the Mental Fitness 101 course, because so often we start by approaching mental health focused on how do I clean away an experience? How do I get rid of an experience? How do I do it right and not do it wrong? But that is the pattern that fuels the struggles with mental health. So I created the Mental Fitness 101 course because when I would work with coaching clients or yeah, just in general, uh, we often start by approaching mental health with the same kind of approach that got us into it. So what we've been talking about with like the way that we were doing things in the past got us to where we are. If we don't like that, we don't want to keep doing the same thing. But that's often how we start by approaching mental health. So the Mental Fitness 101 course takes us through a bunch of exercises to start to look at mental health differently, not as being about cleaning away experiences, but about identifying where we go and then looking at the exercises we want to do and the changes we're going to make to go there. And that's going to involve having thoughts and feelings, and that's okay, while we do actions that we value. So typically, I suggest people start with Mental Fitness 101. There are other courses there that are specific to challenges that people will often run into. So there's a course on values. There's the course on the relapse diagnostic, which is a set of exercises to explore why do I keep going back into these same old compulsions. And there's the non-judgment workout plan. So if you want to look into meditation and mindfulness, there's a free course on the toolkit store called The Basics of Being. And that is to take people through the fundamentals of meditation and mindfulness, similar to how you would do a physical fitness workout program, like breaking it down into component parts. So that could be a great place to start. If you're curious about meditation and mindfulness, the Basics of Being course explains it in a simple, approachable way, and also then gives you mindfulness exercises that you can explore in your everyday life that are also relevant to cutting out compulsions and things like that. So yeah, I'd say Basics of Being, great place to start. Mental Fitness 101 helps make that adjustment to an approach to mental health that's about giving and adding to life, because we're humans, we are not rocks, rather than the old way of trying to subtract feelings, which actually just fuels more struggles with our brains. Yeah. But yeah, if you have any more specific questions about that, always feel free to reach out, to email. Yeah. Minchi said, when planning for the day, I often feel too tired to do the things I value. Does this mean my body actually needs rest? Or am I just too lazy and have to learn how to push through and do the task? You're not too lazy. We expect ourselves to do so much in a very busy, chaotic world. I found it really useful to explore tiredness and interacting with tiredness. And I'd even ask what it would be like to make it, one, okay to be tired, make it okay to rest, and sometimes even make it okay to do actions we value while tired. It is a process when we start to, make changes and take care of our mental health, to learn how accurate our brains are. Sometimes we feel tired, and if we actually go and do the action that we value, then we discover, oh, I don't feel tired and I could actually do it. Sometimes we push ourselves to do something because like we feel like, oh, I've got lots of energy, I want to go do it. And it would actually be more useful to rest. Because even if we have energy, that doesn't mean we have to go and waste it and then feel exhausted again. So it's possible our entire framework around this can change. Personally, it helped me a lot to recognize that if I feel like I should go and do something, then maybe it's a great time to rest. And it was really fun to explore things like deep relaxation meditation when I felt energetic. So learning that rest doesn't have to come as a reaction to feeling terrible. We don't want to make the good things dependent on feeling bad and exhausted. So we can take care of ourselves proactively without needing to react to a bad feeling. But then likewise, I noticed that when something would be useful to me, my brain and my body would often feel like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. I can't do it. And so then it was useful to do it, but also not to see it as like pushing through. It's about say, oh, okay, like I'm tired right now, or I don't feel good right now. Okay, I'm not going to get in a fight with it. I'm going to be kind and gentle to myself. And I'm going to use values, like we were talking about with compulsions around sleep. I'm going to use values to see how to do this well, rather than getting angry and in a fight with my feelings. So yeah, Minji, there's not a simple answer with it, because we'll often all have a different relationship and framework with those feelings. And so yeah, it's exploring it and finding out what's the accurate information. So that yeah, sometimes we can see that, okay, I don't feel like doing it right now, but I know that I can actually do it. And other times it's about saying, oh, I really feel like doing this right now. And so I'm not. And I'm gonna go and rest. Well, Chris, I see your question there, but now I don't remember exactly. Ah, yeah, actually, Chris, I'm not sure when you said, but what about when we're not being able to do enough, say due to lack of info involving communication with perhaps untruthful other people? Maybe can you expand on what you're asking about there? Oh, Khaled, I see your question there on what is your perspective on spiritual awakening? I don't know what that means. Is that like when, so last night I was at a friend's and they got some really good donuts and they actually got there were, I always love a really good donut shop will have a really good apple fritter. I'm gonna say that as just a consistent thing. Uh, Maybe it's not true. We don't want to chase after certainty here, but certainly a good donut shop will have a good apple fritter. And there was an apple fritter in this box of donuts, and it was enormous, like head-sized apple fritter. And so I had a piece of it. I didn't have the whole thing, but even just having a piece of that apple fritter, transformative. I still, remember. I'm not going to say that there's going to be like my life before that apple fritter and my life after it, because I did also have a lot of really good apple fritters before. But that was a good apple fritter. And is that what you're talking about when you say spiritual awakening? And not, you said, I'm not motivated at all to improve my life. I have no why to do things. Yeah, why would you? I'm not a fan of motivation. Motivation, unicorn farts. So yeah, there's no who. If you don't have motivation, great. That wouldn't have been helpful anyway. Now you get to choose how you spend your time and energy. We don't find a why like it's like behind our spleen or something like that. We choose it. Ah, Dalal. So explaining more from your question earlier, you said with our OCD, so with relationship OCD, like sitting next to a male coworker, my compulsion would be to move further away from them, even though there's a normal amount of distance. If I don't move away, it feels like I'm allowing cheating to happen. How do I move past this feeling? Well, so yeah, in general, it's not about moving past a feeling. The like trying to clean away the feeling is what the compulsions are all about. And if we're trying, like if you did something to then feel, oh, okay, I don't feel contaminated, I don't feel bad or wrong now, isn't that great? The brain's just gonna throw up more, right? Like that's just the compulsion cycle. So yeah, trying to get rid of the feeling wouldn't be something I'd see as useful unless we wanted to keep going and going and going and going. if we know that we do compulsions in a particular area. What I find helpful there is identifying the clear actions I am going to do. And then the brain can do whatever it wants. The body can do whatever it wants. I want to learn how to do the action I value, the specific action that's useful to me. Well, the brain does whatever it wants. And so there you can see it's very much like having a little kid with us. And so if we were sitting down and the little kid is like, no, like I want to go over here, I want to get away, I want to get away. And we know there's not actually an issue with that, it being there, that the kid is actually not under threat. There is not a problem with there. We don't have to go with them. We can understand why they might be wanting to control that right now, but we don't have to participate in that. We've identified what we want to give. We can practice giving that, and the brain can do whatever it wants, and we can congratulate it. If the brain's like, we're sitting too close to that guy right now, we can congratulate the brain. Brain, you're so observant. We are sitting very close right now, but here is the action we actually want to do. Here's what we want to give our time and energy to. We don't have to participate in what the little brain kid is doing right then. So yeah, what are the actions that are actually useful to you? Can you want to do those actions? Well, the brain does whatever it wants. Sign said, how can I practically train the ability to handle small feelings and impulses, like sitting on the toilet or the bus without my phone? Is that done through mindfulness? You could see it as mindfulness, but I watch out for thinking like there's a thing we do to then make it easier. Like the practice is going to be doing it. So for instance, if you notice you always have to have your phone on the toilet, it's not about saying, oh, I'm going to go practice mindfulness and then I'm not going to feel the urge on the toilet. No, the exercise is going to be put your phone down, go and use the toilet. If you're going on the bus, I'm like setting the intention, I'm going to go get on the bus now and I'm not going to pull out my phone to fix this feeling. I'm also not going to like chase after whatever the brain throws up when I do that. So it's actually doing the action, not like some separate ritual that's going to make the action easier. So yeah, thinking of it just like physical fitness. Even if we're doing it on lighter weights, we're still going to be lifting the weight. So have fun with it. It's a great way. Like you really learn a lot about the brain when we start to make changes in these areas. We realize how broad the compulsions were. We realize how the other areas of our life that we saw as like the things we actually struggled with, they're just a natural extension of how we've been teaching our brain to interact with reality everywhere. So have fun with it. Oh, Dylan, thank you so much for sharing the courses on the Toolkit store. Felix said, I have a question about what you were discussing about the old engine and scaling. I've recently been promoted at work, but have burnt out through compulsions. How do I get back on track? Yeah, really common. That experience is so normal. Whatever gets us promoted will not help us sustain ourselves and continue to be successful at that next level, generally. If you take that approach, one of the exercises I've added into the Mental Fitness 101 course that didn't used to be there is an exercise called the context map. And the context map is to look at all of the uncertainties that we interact with, all of the things that are increasing and decreasing in our lives. And one of the reasons for doing that, like that's the first exercise in it. And one of the reasons for doing that is because then we get to pause and really take a look at all the uncertainties. We say, look, given all of these uncertainties, it makes sense. I cannot control them all. I won't be able to. Like, this is the environment I'm dealing with. And so then we start to look at what we value. And so you can do an exercise like a context map, 4 work. So in this work setting, what's the environment I'm interacting with? Just to lay it out. And then looking at what you value in a work context. So what do you value giving? Where are you going? And then having a very real conversation about how is it possible to go there given the environment with which I'm interacting with, given all of these uncertainties, because I'm just not going to be able to control all of them. So, what's important? What actions are actually going to help me go where I want to go? And what am I not going to do? What uncertainties am I going to allow? Another way I'll often describe it is as carrying dishes. So, you see, we are like a waiter, and we've been promoted to waiting all of the tables. And so we load up on all of the dishes for all of the tables. And the result of that is that we're going to drop all of them. So, how do we start to identify which dishes are a little bit less important? And we're going to let those drop because we're going to make sure that we deliver the most important dishes, which are the desserts, which is the donuts. So we're going to identify and prioritize. There are, a bunch of different exercises and things like that you can do around that. So yeah, Felix, if you have more questions about that, feel free to reach out and email or social media. But what you're experiencing there are just really, really normal. So we give ourselves a framework to help see what's important and help drop what's not, because it won't be possible to get where we want to go with the old way of doing things. Yeah. So congratulations too on the promotion. I hope you are not burnt out going forward. Anand said, I've been struggling with health issues this year, and I've developed a lot of fear about cancer. And now with any sensation that I feel in my body, it makes me feel like I need to have a medical test. Yeah, give yourself a lot of compassion when we run into health issues because they're unexpected and uncertain and we don't control them. It's so natural. We have a reaction to control. And we could think of the brain as this guard dog. And something unexpected happened. And now the guard dog is worried about any sound. It's just like, oh, is that a danger? Is that a danger? Is that a danger? And so we can give it a lot of compassion. We can say, oh, I get it. My brain guard dog is really sensitive now because there was that bad experience that we had. And so I need to show it with compassion. Like, I get why you're anxious. I get why you're upset. But here's how we're going to take care of things. So having a proactive, clear practice around how you're going to take care of your health can really help. So we're not getting into this reactive, like, I've got to watch for any potential sign, because then we'll see more and more and more and more signs everywhere. And of course, we'll always be convinced they'll end in death. So yeah, can you give a lot of compassion to the brain? It's just having a very natural reaction. And what's the proactive approach to taking care of your health now? So you can give the brain a hug and let it know that you're taking care of things. Oh, Chris, you're welcome. And thanks for explaining more about your question here. You said, I was referring to the previous discussion on feeling that we're not being able to do enough for a situation and trying to enjoy what we are able to do. How can this be adjusted when this involves adverse effects for others we care about? Almost always our brain will tell us that we're not going to be doing enough. Or, like you mentioned, if trying to do enough also depends on somebody who's not cooperative or who's giving you wrong information. Or again, if we're in an environment where there's uncertainty. So it's starting to recognize we're not going to have certainty. We are operating in an environment where there's lots of things we don't control. there'll be that pressure again from the brain to carry all of the dishes. The brain's going to be like, you have to carry all of the dishes to all of the tables perfectly, or it's not enough. But the reality is we can't do that. So identifying what is important, saying, look, I'm not going to have certainty in this situation. I'm not going to be able to do everything in this situation. But what's most important? And I'm going to start with what's most important. I'm going to start with the things that are next most important. And there's some things I'm not going to be able to control. And that will feel wrong. Like this is where it becomes, you know, like a very classic ERP exercise, a very classic exposure and response prevention exercise, where the brain is going to demand, like, just go back and check this one thing. Just make sure this person doesn't get hurt, or just make sure you didn't say the wrong thing. A great example of this would be compulsions to think back over past conversations to make sure we didn't say something wrong. We'll spend so much time going over the conversations. We'll spend so much time checking with people for reassurance, and no amount of that will be enough for our brains. And the brain will rightly tell us, well, we have to make sure because there could be very negative consequences for other people we care about. But we'll never be able to get enough. And we'll never be able to get that certainty. We can, just like we were talking about hugging the brain guard dog a moment ago, we can give ourselves a lot of compassion. It's a chance to celebrate that we care. But that demand we're putting on ourselves to get that perfect certainty, it's not possible. And it'll start to take us away from what we actually care about. Because we'll be spending so much time and energy on the compulsions to chase perfection that we'll actually miss out on spending time with people that we care about. This was an example we were talking about on the members channel. I put up a post yesterday of the example of how, say we struggle with a harm OCD around loved ones, and in particular, a fear of like feeding somebody some food that's poisoned or tampered with. And so I gave the example of somebody being at the kitchen table, they've made a meal for their family, and the brain's like, I think you should just check and make sure that package you used, it looked kind of wrong, or there was kind of like a dent. How do you know it wasn't tampered with? It hadn't been poisoned or something like that. And they may feel the pressure to go back and check in the kitchen. And I think that's a great way to illustrate what so often happens is that we'll say, like, I really care about my family. But then the compulsion will take you away from your family, right? Caring about the family and spending time with them would be staying at the table and enjoying that meal. But then because of the compulsions, that person may go into the kitchen to go and check for reassurance. But what they're actually doing there is taking themselves away from the people they care about. And compulsions will so often do that. In the name of kind of chasing certainty about care, we actually remove ourselves from the actions that truly practice care. And so being aware of that, the brain is going to demand enoughness and certainty to such an extent that it will interfere, guaranteed, with the things that we most care about. And so we don't want to chase after that. We shift to the actions that we actually want to give and how we actually practice care. Yeah. Let's not let our brains get in the way of the things that are important this week. Karthik, you said sticking to our value system is really energy expensive. Because when I just do everything according to my values, it drains me at the end of the day. Can you talk about validation? I've been thinking about it from a young age. Whatever I do, even my values, are so rooted in validation from others. Obviously, I don't get it, which makes me unhappy. So I would just offer those are not values. Values are not about getting. So if we say, like, I value getting validation from people, like, I mean, okay, sure, you could value that, but you can see the result of that. So maybe I'll say it this way. If you notice your values are about getting, and you're exhausted, that makes sense. What if you considered values that are about giving and values that are only based on actions you can do? Right? So if it's about giving, we're going to do the action, but we're not going to try to get something. We're going to give and celebrate the giving as the goal. Yeah. If I gave it, then I was successful. Anang has pointed out very correctly, desserts are important. They are the most important dish. 100%. Oh, Felix, you're welcome. Joseph, thank you so much for the donation. Oh, and the mic drop. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here today. Everybody, we have come to the end of the questions in the chat. If you have any more questions, feel free to share them. If not, we will wrap up our morning adventure time or afternoon, evening adventure time, depending on where you are in the world, and we'll go on our way. I will go and have more coffee because this is such enjoyable, and even this relates to our conversation on tiredness and things like that. One of the things that was a really interesting practice for me to explore was to not, have things like coffee or something like that to fix a feeling, but to actually explore enjoying it. So going, and this is something everybody can explore. If you, for instance, only approach coffee as something like, I'm going to use this to fix a feeling, trying not to do that is a great way to explore interacting differently with feelings. But then if you can grab some really nice coffee beans or something like that, or take a coffee tasting class to explore something like coffee as an enjoyable practice that we can have for flavor and appreciating the journey that the coffee goes on from a coffee farm, rather than I've got to get this fast so I can fix a feeling. Because again, just like sitting with our phones on the toilet, like needing to go and get a coffee to fix a feeling, just more of the usual compulsions. Karthik said, how do I deal with appreciation? I feel I don't deserve it, and I feel that I deserve it. Oh, and if I feel that I deserve it, I feel I would jinx it. I'm scared to feel happy. So even when I feel happy, I feel I don't deserve it. Yes, this is really common. This comes up a lot. One of the things I'll notice, so it's really common that when I'm working with coaching clients, we start out cutting out compulsions. Like we're usually working on making some changes around things that are, obviously not helpful to us. And so we're cutting out some compulsions, and then usually at a point we'll transition to working on just things we want to do more of in life. So often it might be like a business, a relationship. It's really common that people will fear having their business go well. Like they'll fear, or having their job go well. Like they'll fear a promotion, they'll fear a successful business. In relationships, they'll fear being with somebody they actually really like. They'll fear being in a healthy relationship, because one of the sneaky compulsions that we've often not seen as a compulsion is that we are afraid of being happy. And sometimes and not just sometimes, a lot of the times, it's that we become so hooked on seeing happiness as fixing bad feelings. One, and that also we're so afraid that if we're happy, we're going to lose something and then be sad, lose control, be depressed, etc. And so that it's very common that the thing we end up working on is learning how to let it be okay to be happy or be successful, and that actually becomes an exercise where we say okay, we're gonna do things well. We're gonna do the things that would make us happy. We're gonna We're going to let something be successful rather than avoiding it for the fear of losing it. But that's very, very common. We have generally been so hooked on having bad feelings. And even there's a video on my YouTube channel about the most terrifying mental health experience. And I would say the most terrifying mental health experience is no longer being anxious, no longer experiencing the intrusive thoughts, like no longer having a thing to fix and manage because we've spent so much time and energy on that. And so it's very doable, and it's often very terrifying. So, Karthik, yeah, what if it's okay to be happy? What if it's okay to, yeah, celebrate something? If somebody thanks you or appreciates something, what if that can just be that? And you'll see the brain go, oh no, like we're going to jinx something or something bad's going to happen. And we bring the brain back to, oh, this just means I'm being appreciated right now. Or this just means I'm happy right now. I don't need to get into controlling something or fearing the loss of that. But yeah, what you're running into is connected to all of these different compulsions and just the general patterns with which we've been approaching life. So yeah, it's very common that we're afraid of happiness and success and avoid them because then we kind of like getting upset about them not being present, and then the compulsion chase just continues. But yeah, it's okay to be happy. I'll describe it often as a pro skill. Letting things go well is a pro skill. Mhm. Yeah, Chris. So carrying on from what we were just talking about, he said, I see. Indeed, the thing we cannot do feels bad. Yep, similar to ERP, exactly. And when this happens, to also be ethically bad. Yeah, like not being able to ensure a relative of yours is properly taken care of because of untrustworthy personnel. It's hard to tell the normal sadness from the dysfunctional one. Yeah, well, even if we say like all the sadness can be okay, the actually I find it useful to see the dysfunctional part is where we go, oh, I'm gonna go fix and control this reactively. Yeah, this is why we take a moment to look at proactively. What are the actions that are useful that we value? So we're gonna do those with an understanding of what we don't control, and that then helps us see when those uncertainties come up. Like we may notice, oh, like I really want to control that right now, but I recognize I don't control that, and I don't know. No amount of me trying to control that is actually going to relieve that right now. And so it's not a dysfunctional sadness. We're like, oh, that really frustrates me that I'm uncertain about that and I can't control it. What are the actions I've identified that I value doing here proactively? Sometimes it's about seeing like, I've done those actions. And so like going back to this idea of enoughness, like I have done the things, and yeah, it's still going to be frustrating. And yeah, we might still be sad about it. And that's okay. Again, that comes from that caring. And we don't have to get rid of that caring. Yeah, keeping it pushing. Said, thanks for what you do. Oh, you're welcome. Said, what do you recommend when you're getting further along in the recovery process and all that comes up is obsessing about recovery itself? Yeah, so it's really normal. There is always a point where, let's say, we do two things. You may have heard me talk before about at some point we have to make compulsions okay because the compulsions will become the contamination, or recovery will become the thing like, oh, I've got to get this thing right. And so we've got to graduate from recovery. And you can even receive your certificate now. You are officially graduated. You have your honors bachelor's degree in recovery. So done. You are recovered. And so we don't see ourselves as a problem. We sign up for Nothing to Fix Club. And so yeah, if you want to join Nothing to Fix Club, it's a very popular club on the Mental Fitness Discord server. Membership is free. There's actually an application linked to the mental fitness Discord server down in the description. So we join Nothing to Fix Club. We are recovered. And then we're going to do actions we value in life. So sometimes I'll describe this as people picking up like a mental fitness hobby. And we identify some things we want to explore and build, not because we're fixing anything, not because we have to recover from anything, but because these are things we want to keep in our lives and grow. That itself can feel like we're doing something risky because the brain will be like, no, if you're not focused on recovery, you're going to relapse or something bad will happen. So we can see it's just like any other fear that if I'm not obsessing about this, a bad thing will happen. So we say, no, like, I'm not going to get into controlling that uncertainty. My practice is about doing these things. And so it's up to you. Like you get to explore something, but I find we give ourselves that direction. Like we say, for the next couple months, maybe I've seen that I want to explore mental health skills through food. Because, for instance, if somebody saw they had a lot of compulsions around food, and so they cut them out, so they've seen, okay, I've cut out the compulsions, but now what do I do with food? Like my whole way of interacting with cooking and eating and my body was just about compulsions. And so I've cut that out, right? I've thrown out the old engine, but I haven't built the new engine. So how do I explore food? Not to recover from something, but simply because now I get to explore food and like fitness and my body in just a way that works well for me, in a way that I want to keep and grow in my life. And so we really make that switch to this new engine. So we're not fixing an old engine, we're building a new engine. And what do I want to keep and grow in my life? And so, like food, cooking, things like that, that's just an example. It could be anything. But yeah, often it'll be some kind of area where maybe we did have a bunch of compulsions. Now we've cut out the compulsions. Now we want to learn how to interact with that in a way we want to keep in our lives. So yeah, work is another example where maybe our whole work life was about like chasing things and getting things and just trying to get people to see us in a particular way. And so maybe we got a bunch of degrees and we chase like some promotions and particular work environments in a really unhealthy way. And so we cut out the compulsions and now we say, oh, well, how do I actually want to explore my career in a way that's not about getting stuff and controlling stuff? And so we explore because, yeah, we won't know. So we get to try things, but we give ourselves that direction. So have fun with it. And congratulations on graduating from recovery. Oh, Chris, you're welcome. EQ, you asked which city am I in now? I'm in a good city, one of the best cities. Keeping it pushing, absolutely. As this is following up on your comment about recovery, you said it seems like once I'm aware that something is a compulsion, the thoughts become more pervasive. It's like everything is compulsive in some way. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we turn compulsions into the new contamination to clean away perfectly. Simone said, I have a question. Is ACT therapy actually efficient for every single thing we label as a problem psychologically talking? Oh, and then you said hugs from Italy, hugs to Italy. So the key, so I'd say a key difference with acceptance and commitment therapy and core to it is that it's about where you're going. It's about values and giving time and energy to that rather than fixing a wrong feeling. And so even the question of is it good for every single problem kind of like reflects the old way of approaching mental health where we see it as like, oh, you are labeled based on a feeling you dislike and spend a lot of time on. So fundamentally, I would say ACT would see the question there as kind of reflective of the problem. If we were going to the gym, So we'll say we're going to I'm going to go to the gym later today. I have a great gym that I go to in my very great city. When I go to that gym, they don't stop me at the door to ask me, what's your problem? And like, because you're going to have to do a particular set of exercises based on your problem. But look at like, what do you want to build is the focus. And that can change, but the focus is on where you want to go. And so I would say that ACT is useful for going where you want to go. But ACT itself, like core to it, is to not see the feelings as a problem. So in that sense, yeah, it's useful for any feeling because it's not it doesn't matter what the feeling is, and even there's tons of research on ACT across diagnosis, so it's what's often referred to as transdiagnostic. But even for physical stuff, a lot of the kind of the way it gets used quite a lot in the healthcare system is around physical pain. And typically, in old school mental health, we've separated physical pain and emotional pain. I found it and really useful to see them as pain, uncomfortable feelings, and I really like that acceptance and commitment therapy has a very broad research base around handling unwanted emotional experiences and unwanted physical experiences. But again, that's because it's focused on where we want to go. So we say, whatever the unwanted experience is, we're going to look at how do you move towards what you value while making space and interacting differently with the unwanted experience. Cineastry, yes, how often do you go live? I really enjoy your way of explaining things. Oh, thank you. It makes everything feel so much more understandable. Oh, I appreciate it. I go live every other week. So we'll be live this Sunday, and I think we'll go live in 2 weeks from now. Oh, and I see Dylan explaining there down below too. Jeff, so what are some examples of values? I'm a little bit confused on how these work and how to establish my own. Values can be a direction. I'll often describe them. So there's like a values course on the toolkit store. I use the metaphor there of compass directions. They help us see where we want to go in the wilderness. And from those compass directions, we figure out clear actions. So this would be one for me. So I would say I value making mental health and fitness and recovery more accessible. And then I look at in my professional life, in how I spend my time and energy, what are the actions I'm going to do that can help make mental health and fitness and recovery more accessible? And when I'm deciding what to do, I use that value. So like really considering like different options. Okay, which one is actually making it more accessible? Which one's actually sharing skills? So yeah, values, and they don't have to be just professional, they can be personal too. We may say like, I really value spending time with friends and family. And then it's about looking at the week. How am I spending my time and energy? Because if we say I value spending time with friends and family, but I'm spending all of my time on compulsions, there's a bit of a conflict there, right? Because then I'm not actually spending my time and energy on what I value. I'm probably going to be really upset because I'm spending my time and energy chasing certainty or validation or something like that. And so really identifying the values helps us look at how we spend our time and energy. And then we're happier and healthier when we spend our time and energy on things we actually value instead of things or the random things that the brain throws up that we chase after. Yeah, does that make sense? Simone said, I have a question. When I play guitar, I usually tend to shake. How do I get better? So what if it's okay to shake? So at first we say that it's not a problem. because a lot of the reason we'll struggle, and especially with physical stuff, is because we start to hate on it. We're like, this shouldn't be happening. And then we get more focused on it, and then it happens even more. So, what if we start with just, it's okay to shake? You can shake, and do you want to play guitar more? And when we start to make these things okay, we can give our focus, our attention, we can give importance to things that actually matter. Oh, Karthik, so can you please do a workshop in Bangalore, India? I've actually done a workshop in Bangalore before. That was great. But yeah, it was a bunch of years ago. So I did a workshop in Bangalore in 2019, I think. Yeah, we did Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Delhi. Yeah. Zach, thanks for stopping by. It's good to see you. Oh, Karthik, and then I see you said, and can you talk about dealing with childhood trauma and dealing with it? So one of the things I always emphasize there is that so whether it's childhood trauma, whether it's last week trauma, whether it's 2 years ago trauma, it's relationship trauma, it's all the different types of trauma, all the different flavors, we interact with them now in the present. So I just always encourage people to watch out. So one, watch out for what you think dealing with it means, because if we're trying to be time traveling janitors and we're like, I need to clean this away and feel good about it, feel clean about it, that's just going to be more of the compulsions because most of us are not time traveling janitors. So we're not going to travel into the past and change something. But that's okay because we're interacting with the trauma in the present. So seeing it as something we're dealing with now, similar to how if in the past we had a physical injury. So say I had gotten injured in the past, and then like today, later I'm going to the gym. And so maybe I noticed some pain or there's some scar tissue from that traumatic injury. It can be an emotional traumatic injury. I'm going to interact with that while I'm doing something in the present. And so if we experience some childhood trauma of some sort, we may notice that we get very anxious or experience some pressure to do some compulsions in a situation in the present. And so we can have a lot of understanding for where that came from. Because we can see, oh yeah, I get it right now. Like even that younger self is here right now trying to get me to avoid something or control something because it was painful before. Now in the present, we get to interact differently with that injury. So I'll often think of it like a physical injury. If we had a physical injury that impacted our mobility, so because of the thing that happened in the past, our mobility in the present is constrained. We're going to work on bringing that mobility back into our lives. So we're going to work on kind of doing mobility movements, maybe emotional and mental, but often real things in our lives. And they're gonna be painful. And so we're gonna have a lot of understanding for why that's painful and why our mobility is constrained. While at the same time, stepping into things in a healthier way with an understanding for the past injury. But the great thing is that happens in the present. So it doesn't matter where the trauma was, it doesn't matter how long ago, because the place where we interact with it is now. But we also don't have to clean it away. We're not looking to clean away a past injury. We're looking how to bring mobility and movement and freedom of movement into our lives in the present. Yeah, Dylan, thanks for sharing about the live streams. As Dylan's pointed out here, yeah, generally we'll do them at 9 a.m. Toronto time, and they'll happen every other Sunday. But sometimes we'll skip a Sunday. Like, who knows? I think coming up, the current schedule will be able to just take us through a couple of months. But yeah, there always could be something, some holidays or something like that, or a meditation retreat, and we'll need to adjust the schedule for that. So I always share on Instagram when they're happening, but also sometimes people will ask on the mental fitness Discord server, like, is there a live stream happening today? And people there will know if it's happening or not. And also, I'll be there too and can answer that question. Yeah, and so Chris captured this in a really helpful way. So Chris here said, in the vein of the previous discussion, one might say being happy, doing what you proactively recognized you could do, and avoiding rumination about it and aspects we cannot directly have an effect on. Exactly, and it's often that. Like I noticed that it really felt like I had to teach my brain what enough was. And it was often that feeling this pressure of something inside of us going, you should control the moon, and being able to say, okay, I noticed that, but I decided that today's action was to make breakfast. And so I did not control the moon, but I did have breakfast, and that is enough. And so it'll often feel like you have to pick up the brain and show it what enough was. And then eventually it'll start to catch on. Maybe. And why? Said I always daydream that people are watching me and thinking that I'm great, and I know that's a compulsion, but I don't realize it and start daydreaming as soon as I wake up. Ah, what do you want to do instead? Yeah, and that you can do that. Sometimes we notice in the things we'll often ruminate on and do compulsions on that we are chasing something. It doesn't mean that the thing is necessarily bad. For instance, a lot of people, one thing I'll notice, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, to people will often do compulsions to avoid being successful or avoid being happy. It's quite common that people will say something like, I don't like people, or I have social anxiety, or I get anxious around others, or I don't want the responsibility of, you know, being successful or something like that. But then when we look at the things that they ruminate on, that's the stuff they ruminate on. They ruminate on other people. They ruminate on being seen by other people and so on. And so then sometimes we'll look at kind of what are those compulsions telling us about what you'd rather be spending time and energy on. So yeah, if you notice you're often daydreaming about how people see you, but then you're not doing things that would put your work in front of people, maybe it's time to switch that up. Less time daydreaming and more time actually putting yourself and your work in front of other people. 97 said, when it comes to my valuing being myself, interested in the gender I am, interested in how do I practice doing that? It's difficult because I'll overthink that I like the same gender and it feels real. It's especially hard because I do support LGBTQ people, but I just don't identify as that myself. However, it feels like I'm lying to myself and others. It feels like I would have a lot more questions about what's going on there. Yeah, if you find yourself struggling with the idea of values, because I think, yeah, at the start you said, I value being interested in the gender I am. Yeah, I'd be curious about what that means practically. If you're running in, like, if you see that the way you're approaching values is like actually then like creating a lot of challenges for yourself, yeah, connecting with a skilled professional to explore how you actually want to spend your time and energy, yeah, can be really useful. Karthik said, I value having my own family and to be a good father, but I'm single now and I'm scared if I would never become a father or have a good family life. Well, if you want to be not single, what are the actions that would contribute to starting a family? Yeah, other than 97 shade. Yeah, exactly. Breakfast one, moon zero. We don't control the moon, but we can control making breakfast. JPL said, what if recovery for some is just too painful to be done? If it were not, every traumatized person, right, would have recovered. Isn't recovery more of a willingness to accept the pain is inescapable? I would have a lot of questions there about how you're defining recovery. I would say that the keeping the mental health struggles around keeping the controlling and the checking and the managing, keeping the fight with feelings, seeing them as this like, oh, like this is pain, that is way more work and way more uncomfortable and painful than living our lives and having experiences and doing the things we want. Um, yeah, I'd be curious about how you're defining recovery there. And yeah, maybe there are other ways to approach, right? And again, even thinking if we say you've graduated from recovery, yeah, so if recovery was already a done thing, you've received your honors bachelor with distinction, cum laude in recovery. What do you want to do now? What do you want to give your time and energy to? Oh, Karthik, thank you. Sanjay, so do you believe in different meditations for different brains? I think so. Again, just like physical fitness, there's going to be, I'd say, different skills that you might already be good at. And so when you approach meditation, you might find it useful to explore different types of meditation. So a great example of that is I'm going to hold up two hands to represent two different approaches to meditation. So we have object-oriented meditation and object-less meditation. I find that if people have a lot of experience ruminating and doing compulsion, they already know object-oriented meditation because you have no problem, like, say, like focusing on a physical sensation for days. No problem focusing on regret and like holding an emotion for weeks, anxiety, and so on. And so that, yeah, unhelpful, but is the skill of object-oriented meditation. Or, for example, when you're driving, like if you're able to drive, well, in your head, you're having conversations with other people. Yeah, so you already know how to focus. But do you know how to not focus on something? And so that's the object-less meditations. Also, well, people may really know how to focus on a feeling they hate, they may really struggle with a feeling like love and kindness. So for instance, I found loving kindness or metta meditation really valuable to explore because I was very skilled at being anxious for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, hating on myself, very, very skilled at judging things I did. But when it came to bringing up a feeling of love and kindness and giving that to myself, oh, seconds. I could do that for mere seconds. So there was no level of capacity and endurance there. So it was really useful to recognize that and explore that. And so, yeah, I wouldn't see that just as like different brains, though. So to your question of are different meditations for different brains. Uh, I have a human brain, and I practiced using it in particular ways for many, many years. Recognizing where I hadn't used that human brain, yeah, did open up the possibility to explore types of meditation that would help me use that. So exploring object-less meditation through the Soto Zen tradition of like just sitting in silent illumination, and then also exploring meditations like metta meditation and loving kindness meditation. Yeah, it was so valuable. Not because I have a particular type of brain, but because I had practiced the other stuff for a really, really long time, and my brain was good at other stuff. And it was useful to teach my brain how to get good at some more helpful practices that have been so much more enjoyable. 97 shade said, I'd say in terms of values, I guess I'd like to be interested in the opposite gender for myself. There's even women in my life I'm interested in. However, I guess due to those HOCD thoughts, I feel like the compass of where I want to lead myself through actions feels blurry. Yeah, and so there's something interesting to explore there on uh, like why would some thoughts be making the values blurry? And so I'd also be curious about looking more broadly on how do you, throughout life, around other topics as well, attach importance to thoughts in many different ways. Because in so many ways, if we were saying like we saw something that was just useful for us to do at work, and the brain was like, oh, but maybe we should be doing a different career, and then suddenly we were like, oh yeah, maybe I should be doing a different career. But that's a really useful way to see like why are we giving so much importance to those thoughts? Why Another way I often describe it is the brain being like a person shouting in the street. And so if the person shouting in the street says, "You're an alligator," does that then make it blurry for the rest of the day? Like, am I human or am I an alligator because the random person in the street said I'm an alligator? And so right now, yeah, why does that create that blurriness? That can be interesting to explore across everything. Is the how why do we give so much importance to the random guy shouting in the street? And if we're not giving importance to the random guy shouting in the street, then what? Yeah, it can be useful to explore. Sanjay, yeah. So for love and kindness meditation resources, if you go on my channel and search love and kindness skills practice, there are two videos on there. Not by me, but by a meditation teacher I used to practice with in Toronto. And they shared kind of two videos to really break down the practice so you can start learning how to explore it. Robbie, do people get bored of meditation over time? Said, I feel burnout meditating too much. I would look at it changing how you meditate then. I know, I'm so excited. I'll share a video. Maybe we'll make this today. I just arrived. I was talking at the beginning about my coffee filter, and I have very little stuff. I've decided two objects that I'll always keep with me: the coffee filter and a meditation bench. When I started out traveling, I took my meditation bench with me. Eventually, I traded the meditation bench for more space for hiking boots, basically. And that you can meditate anywhere, but having a meditation bench, especially when you're meditating for longer and really explore like exploring meditation, yeah, having a proper seat anywhere you go is so valuable. So I just got delivered another meditation bench. It's a travel meditation bench by a company called Blue Coney. I believe they're a company based in Quebec, in Canada, and they make this great meditation bench that has detachable legs, so I can fit it in my luggage. And it just arrived, and I'm so happy to have a meditation bench again. And you can burn out from meditating too much. There's famous writing on what the Zen teacher Hakuin referred to as Zen sickness. But it was also a recognition that the way they'd been meditating and approaching meditation hadn't been useful. So yeah, if we notice ourselves burning out from meditation, then yeah, it's very likely that it's an opportunity to see that we can make some changes there. So yeah, it's not to just be like, oh, like I shouldn't be burnt out. I'm gonna keep on going. It's that, well, how are you going about it? Why is it burning you out? And is there an opportunity there to do some things differently? Mhm. Kenneth, Kenneth, I don't know if Kenneth, you can share more about what you're running into there. But I don't totally understand what your kind of your topic are referring to there. Yeah, and Dylan, thanks for sharing about the letting it be okay to not like have certainty or to think like you should have certainty about who you like. Blooper 75, thanks for dropping by. And Blooper, you asked that why does it feel like it's easier to do response prevention when at rock bottom or a low place? And they said, or is it only me? No, it's really common. That's why we talk about making that switch from that reactive approach. Because if we only wait for bad feelings or we wait until we hit rock bottom to do useful things, we just always go back there. I describe it in my book as like rewarding your dog for peeing on your sofa. If you're like, oh, okay, you you destroyed furniture. Now we're going to like do some healthy practices, or now I'm going to take you out for a run. Well, then like the dog is just gonna keep doing it. And so yeah, if you only, do useful things, if we only cut out the unhelpful compulsions when we feel terrible, and we only do healthier practices, we only do actions we value when we're at rock bottom, then yeah, we're gonna keep going back to rock bottom because we've made illness the prerequisite for health. But unfortunately, that's also an aspect of our mental health care system. Our mental health care system is designed around waiting until you have a disorder to then start to talk about mental health skills or start to access help. Right? And we recognize with physical fitness that would be a terrible idea. Right? We don't make you have a heart attack before exercising. In mental health care, we do that. We're like you've got to be having problems before, right? We'll even start to talk about healthy skills. And so that's why we do this. That's why we gather here on proactively building great mental health and fitness, just as something we can all do because we're human, not because we have a problem or a disorder. And so, yeah, it's really useful to recognize that yeah, we've been hooked on the bad things. And we don't have to get hooked on the bad things. We can do the things that we value growing in life before the bad things happen. So it's time to go and do that. Let us head out into the world and grow and build things that we really care about. While we do that, yeah, we might have some thoughts and feelings. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and yeah, being part of Brain Tech Support Live today. Thank you. Oh, Dylan, thank you so much for the donation. Oh, I really appreciate it. Dylan, thank you so much for helping with the chat today, like sharing, yeah, managing the chat, but also sharing really useful insights and resources with everybody as well. So yeah, thank you so much for the donation. Yeah, thank you everybody who donated today. Really, thank you for being here and being part of Brain Tech Support Live. Yeah. Hey, thank you everybody in the chat. Yeah, sharing about the experiences you're having with your very human brain. I really appreciate it. It's great that we can explore together and yeah, proactively work on skills rather than waiting until we bounce off of rock bottom to do something useful. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy in the week ahead, especially now that, I mean, everybody has graduated from Recovery University. So we don't need to fix and clean away some stuff in our heads. We can just go and do the things we value and grow those things. So let's enjoy that. Thank you, everybody, so much. Oh, and everybody I see in the chat there, Minchi, Karthik, keeping it pushing, Blooper, Dylan, wonderful having you all here today. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great day, everybody.